Alright, so we're moving on to chapter 2.3, and for this chapter, or section I should say, we're working through some one-step conversions. So you'll notice that in this lesson, we are using the information that we learned from the chapter 2.1 video, where we have the formula sheet, and the chapter 2.2 video, where we worked through proportions. So what I want to make sure that you have right now is your formula sheet, and of course pen or pencil and some note paper. So if you don't have those, go ahead and pause the video and grab them and then hit play again. Okay, so what is a conversion? It's a great question, because when we learned, or when we went through the formula sheet, we could see that 1 mile equaled 1,760 yards right here. And there was a number of other conversions, unit conversions right here. But just to give you a better picture of it, I've given you two rulers. The top one is in centimeters, and the bottom one is in inches. And you can see that this red line is the same length on the top and bottom. When we measure it in centimeters, it's going to be 10 centimeters. But when we use the inch ruler, it's going to be just under 4 inches. So that is what conversions are. We are taking one measurement, for example the 10 centimeters, and we are changing it into a different unit. So how do we do that? Well, like I said before, we're going to need our formula sheet, and we're going to need to remember about our proportions. So in this one, we have 25 yards, and we are trying to figure out how many inches it is. So the very first thing that I want you to do is I want you to write down 25 yards. And we're going to make it into a fraction. So I want you to put a line, and we're just going to say question mark inches, because we're trying to figure out how many inches it is. Now, just like in the last video on proportions, we have an equal sign and we have another fraction. And in this fraction, we're going to be using our formula sheet. So what I want you to do is, on your formula sheet, find a conversion that has yards and inches. So in other words, how many inches is 1 yard? Or how many yards is 1 inch? Whichever way it goes. So on your formula sheet, I just want you to pause the video and try to find out where the yards and inches are. Okay, so if you're looking at your formula sheet, you'll notice that right here it says 1 yard is 36 inches. So I'm going to use that information and I'm going to put it into my fraction. 1 yard is 36 inches. Okay. Now, something that I really want to draw attention to is that I put the yards on the top of the fraction and the inches on the bottom. And the reason why I did that is because in my other fraction, I put the yards on the top and the inches on the bottom. I have to keep it the same. So now it's looking very much like the proportions from last video. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide. So 25 and 36 is what I'm going to multiply. It's 900, and I'm going to divide by 1. So it's 900. So in other words, 25 yards is the same thing as 900 inches. I'm just going to circle my answer. Let's try another one. Here we have 27 quarts and how many gallons? So the very first step that I'm going to do is make this into a fraction. 27 quarts over question mark gallons. I will always start this way. Now I make my fraction on the other side, and I look for a conversion that has quarts and gallons. So I want you to pause the video and try to find the quarts and gallons. Alright, so right here, 1 gallon is 4 quarts. So you must be careful at this point because it really matters where you put the quarts and where you put the gallons in the other fraction. So just like I said before, you really want to make sure that whatever you put on the top over here, you put on the top over there. So that means the quarts will go on the top here, and the 1 gallon will go on the bottom here. So notice how I'm just using these exact words and numbers. 1 gallon, 4 quarts. And now it's a proportion that I can cross multiply and divide. So I can cross multiply 27 and 1. And I get 27. And then I'll divide by my last one. 4. 6.75. So, to answer my question at the top, 27 quarts was equal to 6.75 gallons. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next one. We are working with the exact same kind of question, just different numbers and different units. Alright, so this one's your turn. So what I'd like you to start off by doing is make this into your fraction. And then if you can, try to find a conversion that involves feet and centimeters. So go ahead and pause the video and write in your fraction and find a conversion. Alright, so we have 54 feet on top, and we're not sure how many centimeters. Now if you looked over your formula sheet, you could find that the feet and centimeters are right there. So 1 foot goes on top and 30.48 centimeters goes on the bottom. So you have to keep in mind that my feet are on top and my centimeters are on the bottoms. Now I can cross multiply and divide. So if you haven't done so already, I'd like you to cross multiply and divide. Alright, so we have 54 times 30.48. And we divide by the last one. Maybe I'll write it up here as well. So 1,645.92 centimeters. Alright, so now we're going to go on to our last one, and we are converting 76.34 pounds into grams. So again, the very first thing you're going to do is make this into a fraction. And then find out what goes into your other fraction. So go ahead and pause the video and solve that now. Alright, so 76.34 pounds is how many grams? So we can see right here that 1 pound is 454 grams. And then I'll cross multiply. 76.34 times 454 and divide by 1. And my answer is going to be 34,658.36 grams. Alright, so now I want you to complete the Chapter 2.3 homework found on my RCOA, and some special information is that 4 of the questions on the chapter quiz are going to be very similar to your homework questions.